Test, test, can you hear me? Can you hear me? Ah, very cool. Okay. So we shall start our playthrough of Torment Tides of Numenera. I have finished all my popcorn, so you won't have to listen to me crunching away on that. It was so good. We'll be male, because I want the voice to sync up.
Your mind wakes in darkness. Aching cold sets into an unfamiliar body. A distant howling surrounds you, louder with each passing second. Insistent and invisible hands slap and tear at the membrane that protects you. Your first emotion is an involuntary and formless panic. You feel you have forgotten something important. As if it once meant the world to you. But the details slip away as you grasp at them. You force your eyes open.
Let's look around.
A white-pink fleshy cocoon surrounds you. Even as you look, a minor rent in its side tears open, and the howling wind forces its way inside. The cocoon rips away, gone before you can grab it, spinning you into a dizzying tunnel. You are falling, the world many kilometers beneath you. You catch a glimpse of a curved horizon, and also the ground beneath you that is approaching deceptively quickly. Above you, a small moon is slowly collapsing in upon itself. A corona of acid green and black energy playing around its edges. The wind buffets you and burns your eyes, but you don't need to see the details of the faraway ground to know you're in serious trouble. You won't survive a fall from this stratospheric height. A part of your frantic mind babbles that technically you probably fell from a thermospheric height. You struggle to stay focused as the ground rushes toward you.
Let's flatten out and see if we can stop our fall.
Instinctively, you spread your arms and legs, and they respond sluggishly. You stop tumbling head over heels. Though you are still spinning laterally, that motion has calmed as well, and you have space to assess your situation, and perhaps to understand the predicament and the body in which you find yourself. Below you, you see a large landmass. A massive ocean dominates the rest of the visible globe, dotted here and there with island chains. Small moons, unusual structures, and strange machines rush past you in glittering profusion as you plummet toward the ground.
Let's try to figure out how we came to be falling from space.
It's hazy. You were in a tall passageway, its sides slicked with dew, the air warm and moist, as if you were caught in the breath of a giant organism. You remember fleeing in fear and exhilaration, laughing through the terror. What was it that pursued you? Something ancient and cold, its coiling power the promise of oblivion. Its shadowed tendrils struck at you, and the walls where they landed were torn apart utterly, destroyed beyond any hope of repair. You leapt into a membranous cocoon and fell from the station, the moon. And then you were empty. But who were you? What was that creature? A word surfaces in your thoughts, and you seize it before it vanishes. Sorrow. The world fills your sight. You're about to hit.
Let's try and slow down just a little bit more.
You're still plummeting. If it's any consolation, the dizzying fall will be over shortly. You see a small glassy dome inside the littered bay. Two figures outside it. One of them points his arm at you and a riot of colors tangles your fall, slowing you, but not enough. You crash into the building, and as your consciousness winks out, you hear the sounds of the structure collapsing around you, and then
So that was some of the only voice acting in this game so far. So I'm going to pull out and play the game at about this distance just because it lets me kind of see what I'm doing. Jumbled thoughts cloud your head as you study the empty bowl before you. Drops of liquid fall from the ceiling, splattering the ground next to the bowl. The light from every drop is reflected in the bowl's rounded hollow, as if it hungers for that light and needs to be filled. Yet the bowl remains dry. Another drop falls from the ceiling and splashes across the pylons, wasted. So we can examine the bowl, or we can try to move the bowl. Let's try to move the bowl. We have failed to try to move the bowl. The edges of the bowl tear into your flesh as you seize it. You grit through the pain, hauling the bowl over to the glowing pool of fallen light. Oh, and we took 1 point of damage. Blood trails from your fingers into the hungry depths of the bowl. Drop by drop it fills, your blood mixing with the light until the air itself takes on a strange reddish hue. Ripples spread over the blurred outline of your reflection. A sanguine radiance spills across the segmented floor, washing away the nearest shadows and pouring into your mind, melting the ragged edges of your fragmented thoughts. You are not whole, not yet, but you have begun to heal from the damage done in your long fall. A voice calls out to you somewhere high above, beyond the reaches of the spreading light. Hello, are you still alive down there? We're up here. Build a path up to us and be careful. I cannot overturn the bowl. So we can interact with the floor and learn about it. Metal waves roll over the floor below, sending vibrations through the soles of your boots. Interact. As soon as you touch the orb, a memory floods your mind. You stand in front of a rusted door. The air is humid and dank. You've had a moment's respite from this waterlogged hell. A bubble of stale air, your resting point. You've breathed water before, and you've lived decades beneath the waves, but this body's an air breather, and a constant pressure has been crushing you ever so subtly. Worse, your companion's mind seems to be wandering from the task at hand. He's a genius with machines, as well as you know, but now he seems distracted. The device in his hand is covered in knobs, wires, and antennas. He believes it can get the two of you through the corroded door, but he's merely staring at it. Perhaps he's lost faith in his invention, but that's hardly your concern. This mission cannot be delayed. It must proceed. Cast an esotery. You mumble a few words, drawing power from the air around you until a solution appears in your mind. You snatch the device from his hands, rewire it, and shove it back to him. Oh, he says, examining your work. Sorry, I was trying to improve the thing. He waves the device at the door, and the stale air of your bubble freshens. The door swings open. A dark hallway lies beyond, a passage that links the water-bordered cell and the aquatic viewing areas. What you seek lies there. Moments later, you're underwater again, your hands closing around a strange yet familiar artifact. You need it to complete something. It hovers above a pedestal, rotating in the dark water. An electric current runs through your fingers as your hands cross the vertical planes of the pedestal, and an iridescent field coalesces so fast that the wave of pressure dazes you for a moment. The rising pulse of a sonar alarm ripples through the water. The guards won't be far behind. Well, they've already heard the alarm, so disabling it isn't going to do jack. And they say we need it, so we can't just leave it and come back for it, so we'll use a device to try to stop them. You run urgent fingers over the devices fastened to your waist, fog rising in your mind. A few can be used against the guard, but will also turn your skin to synth steel, or the surrounding water to boiling wax. Hardly ideal. Finally, you find a small silver spear. Setting the sphere in place, you kick desperately for the safety of a nearby alcove. The sphere whirls and unfolds into a spiraling vortex. The sphere, at its center, speaks a few polite words in an ancient language, then begins draining the surrounding water into itself at an alarming speed. The approaching guards shout, then scream as they too are sucked into the whirlpool and ripped to pieces. You allow yourself a fleeting smile, but are all too aware that more alarms are going off in the distance. The memory begins to fade as if it was drawn backwards through a tunnel, and you hear more Cylons rising from the pit. Something is wrong. The events within the orb have settled into that gap in your mind, but the edges of it are rough, as though the memory itself is not truly yours. There is something else, a gust of sour air pulling at you like a predator inhaling the scent of its prey at the far end of the dark whispering field. So I'm going to say this right here and now, this game has a lot of dialogue. So you're going to have to listen to me talk for quite some time. You stand beside a woman on a verdant crag. Beneath the two of you is a broad plateau towering above the overgrowth far below. Strange machines have been built into the cliffside, presumably for reconnaissance or defense. A metallic disc gleams in the center of the plateau. Your self-aware humanoid machines drill into the base of the cliffs below. If you were looking for a sanctuary, and you were, desperately, this seems like the right place. I don't know about this, the woman says, her voice flat and neutral. Her face is turned away from you. What makes this place any more secure than the other ones we've found? Let's try to draw her attention to hidden details. You shade your eyes against the bright sun so that you can point out the thin bands radiating out from the metallic disc, how energy from those bands affects the local fauna, suggesting an enormous source of prior world energy. She thinks deeply. It's geologically sound. Have you run the sounding samples and checked the strata? No major caverns or weaknesses showed up on your resonance scans? She waits for your affirmation and says, "All right, I'm convinced." The two of you sketch your plans for the sanctuary, drawing schematics and architectural diagrams. Then you descend onto the plateau and examine the open ground. The woman suggests having one of the servitors build a shelter for your time here. You try to draw one of the constructs away from its task, but it does not respond to your voice. When you lay a hand on its shoulder to reinforce your command, it whirls and strikes you across the face with inhuman speed. It turns back to its task, ignoring you. Your companion helps you rise, laughter in her eyes. It seems your constructs have other ideas. What's the matter with it? So my own invention just bitch slapped me. That's nice. Let's check it for defaults, because it should be listening to me if I made it. Everything resolves into sharp focus, and you see the servitor's real actuators are corrupted. You dig into the construct's back. It seems not to mind as long as you don't interfere with its task. Deftly, you reset the actuators and see energy spark into the disused portion of the construct's brain. The construct resumes its work, and this time it listens to you when it speaks. Acknowledged. It obediently trundles to the site of your new shelter. The image freezes, then fades, the feeling of the memory filling the gaps in your mind, blocked by jagged block. You stagger, clutching your head, reclaiming your memories hurts. And once more there's something else. Hair lift, one by one, on the back of your neck. Something beyond this room can sense what you're doing, and is hunting you. A vision of a city springs up around you, your city, in flames and under attack. Her defenders have fought and died all day, and still the attackers are coming. They fight as if your destruction were demanded of them. They care nothing for mercy, surrender, or plunder. What they want is blood. But you have brought a keen-eyed companion to the top of the tower. She has seen the way to stop the invaders. You need to get her to safety, and you need to rally your defenders. But even as you turn towards the door of the tower, two of the attackers descend from a hovering machine. You don't have time to strike at them before they land. One is brutishly large, his weapon a vibrating axe. The other is slim, sheathed in glassy armor, and holds a hilt with a sizzling invisible blade. Your companion backs away. She's too young to help. Your enemies advance in a single file, confined by the parapet. We're going to fight defensively, because that's actually something I learned in Pathfinder and Dungeons & Dragons. Don't go all out until you know what you're actually facing. The memory seems crystal clear. The giant is menacing, it's true, but the invisible blade of his companions is more worrisome still. The energy field that flickers and wavers around it suggests that she can carve matter at a molecular level, tearing the pieces of her targets into nothingness. If you are to save yourself, your best bet is to tackle her first. She's stuck behind the giant, waiting for her turn to attack you, unable to bring her weapon to bear until he is out of the way. But it's clear that she expects him to handle you, and her eyes rove behind you, her focus on your ward. She certainly is not expecting you to dive between the giant's leg and come up inside her guard. She can't bring her blade up in time, and as you drive your dagger up under her chin, you catch her before her deadly blade drops. You catch her before her deadly blade drops onto you and spin her around. The weapon slashes into the giant, and he topples, bisected. The immediate threat ended, you focus on finding a way back to your allies. You open the tower door and rush down the stairs. The door at the base of the stairs is slightly cracked, opening just a bit into the hall, and you hear more of the enemy soldiers behind you. So they don't know that I'm there, so maybe we can catch them unaware with the door. You charge through the dim shadows, dropping your shoulder into the door at the last minute. It bursts open. Halfway through its arc, it crashes against a pair of enemy soldiers, scattering them. You race through the door, blade in hand, and you dispatch your stunned foes before they have a chance to move. Their blood begins to pool in the hallway. The memory begins to fade, and you find yourself back in your own body. Your temples throb with the racing force of your heartbeat, and the reclaimed memories blaze within you like a bonfire on a mountain peak, visible to every predator for kilometers around. A tremor rocks the floor beneath you, and as though a massive fist has struck the room itself. Swaying on your feet, you see frantic movement within the borders of the mirror at the edge of the room. The border within this mirror is lavishly decorated with a dizzying number of interlocking symbols, daggers, masks, paintbrushes, amulets, and more, but that's nothing compared to what you see in the glass. You see a vast crowd of people, exact doppelgangers of you, shoving, arguing with, and fighting each other. Most are drab imitations of you, but a precious few are vivid and pull at your attention. Each of them bears an intricate pentagonal tattoo on their head. In their eyes, their actions, you see the memories you discovered within the orbs and the choices you've made shining like distant stars. Your hand twitches at your sides, and though some of the bright doppelgangers ignore you, an even smaller number immediately turn to you, waiting for you to choose them and learn what you might become. A rumble shakes the room, and a slow vibration spreads from the darkness below, rippling towards the ceiling. So, this whole choice is kind of arbitrary, so I'm not going to go through all of these. It's just kind of a whole, hey, if you like this kind of a character, you might want to play as blankety blank. So I chose the observant one. Sliding around the edge of the unruly crowd, the doppelganger cautions you to silence with its finger at its lips. Together you scan the room and its inhabitants, noting every potential hazard, and hearing every drip of strange liquid in the depths beneath your feet. The remaining doppelgangers scatter for the edge of the mirror and vanish. Your chosen identity steps before you. Its appearance changes as it steps out of the rippling glass. Its face exudes intelligence and confidence. Shadows of several devices shimmer all around it, technology of several kinds from a myriad of past ages. You get the feeling you, would be comfortable with all of it. The word nano resounds in your mind. Your doppelganger continues walking, stepping into you, filling you, making you whole. Your decision rings out into the cavernous room. A awakening and unlocking vast mechanisms behind the wall. Suddenly, a grotesque noise rings through your shared worlds, like a bell if bells could rot. Something is coming. The mirror fades, leaving a dark, open doorway. You take a deep breath and step through. So this is where I get to pick what I am. So I could pick the glaive, which is kind of like the warriors, the people with the shields and heavy swords. I could pick the jack, which is kind of like a jack of all trades. It's actually where the name comes from. But to kind of stick with our theme of my Numenera novel, I will actually pick a nano. So here's the quick little description of them. Nanos are sometimes called mages, wizards, sorcerers, or even witches by people of the Ninth World. Whatever they're called, nanos master the mysteries of the past to the degree that they seem to perform miracles using esoteries, spell-like invocations that combine gestures, commanding words, and psychic disciplines. They tap into nanospirits, numerous particles that suffuse the landscape to alter reality or learn things that they couldn't otherwise know. I just saw that some people joined my stream, so welcome to the stream of Numenera. So as you can see, if I pick the nano, I get a concentration increase, an increase to my cipher limit, and the ability called Onslaught, which is kind of like your cantrip, I'm going to throw a fireball at your face type spell. I also get a +2 to my intellect, 2 points to distribute to any pool, 5 extra points of health at each tier after first tier, and I gain 2 abilities at each tier. I can pick 1 lore skill at tier 1. So obviously intelligence or intellect is going to be our most valuable ability. Speed is not bad either because it lets me basically dodge attacks. So we put a point in intellect and a point in speed. Might, I'm not going to be the one punching things, so I don't need as much might. So exploration skills, this is where I can pick random abilities that I can have. Scan thoughts, surface thoughts of most people or creatures you speak with appear in conversation. Love this ability just because it's really nice role-playing. Innervate, which is kind of like my heal. Quantum Step, which is a teleport. Adaptation, which is kind of like, hey, I'm going to temporarily mutate you to survive this situation. And then Resourcefulness, which just lets me use an additional Numenera. I'm going to do Innervate just because it's really nice to not have to rely on healing items to keep my health up. So now I get to pick a lore that I can be studied in. So I can pick machinery, natural, or mystical. Now, academic knowledge of machines, mechanics, and physical sciences. Academic knowledge of natural sciences and physical creatures. Academic knowledge of sciences that are not exactly physical nor natural, including strange or trans-dimensional creatures. So I'm going to pick mystical because, hey, I like trans-dimensional stuff. I can't do any weapons training because only glaives can do that. So now I get to pick my descriptor. So I originally picked Observant, which gives me a training in perception, a training in concentration, but I lose a particular skill in running. I could pick Mystical, which means I have an even deeper connection to the mystical side of things. That would give me a +1 to mystical skill and a +1 to cipher use. Now, if we combine that with the mystical bonus I already took, I'm at max level for mystical, so that would be pretty cool. Do we have anything mayhaps better? Persuasion, intelligence, select, concentration. See, I really want concentration for what I'm doing, because there are certain items, if you don't have concentration, like if you don't have good concentration, then they'll kind of screw you over. Observant, perception. Yeah, I don't really need running. So, yes. So I picked the Observant just because I don't really give a crap about running, and it's really nice to have that bonus to concentration and perception. Everything about this spectral figure seems dreamlike. He is a hazy silhouette who seems to be made of blue glass smoke. He wears stylish, well-cut clothes. His handsome, bearded face seems hauntingly familiar, though you've never seen him before. He breathes a sigh of relief when he sees you. We weren't sure that would work. We pooled our strengths and channeled it through me to reach you, to wake you up. He glances at the other figures here and frowns unhappily. It took more out of them than we thought. The other reflections, they're more like shadows now. Look, I bet you got a lot of questions. This whole place is basically your mind. And your body's still out there in the real world, healing from that fall. You need to get out of here and finish the process. He shrugs. Shouldn't be too hard. Buddy, we've got some questions here. First off, who the hell are you? He pauses and looks down at himself, considering a long time before answering. I'm you, a part of your mind, a splinter. I was waiting here for you. We called you with the memories of the others who were here. I don't know what happened next. Who are these other people then? That's what they are, as I said. It's your mind. You'll find reflections of people you knew, people you met in the real world, and with whom you shared some kind of psychic connection. I don't know how or why. It just happens. This place is my mind. Why don't I remember any of this? Any of you? It's your mind, a construct built to, I don't know, share thoughts? Store your true self? Wait, you know how people say in the first place? This is definitely the first place of your memory. Well, it was the first place for me anyways. You probably know better since it's yours. If you don't remember now, maybe it'll come later. How do I finish healing? After you wake up from this dream state and attune to the tides, you'll need to find something called a resonance chamber. Your body should have landed somewhere near it. Just climb inside that, and everything will be fine. Before I met you, it felt like something was hunting me. What was that? That's a memory I don't want to recall. Large, black, furious. It's our death. It's the sorrow. That's a vaguely racist statement. His eyes he closes his eyes. I hope it's lost interest in you. If it finds us, we're done for. How do you know all of this? He throws his hands up in frustration. I'm just a part of you. I look at you and I know. This place was made for you, for us, and I remember pieces of knowledge that come to me when you ask your questions. But that's all. Alright, what's the tides? The tides are like a force, like gravity, or magnetism, or something except they respond to people's actions and perceptions. Your body, that is, your body in the real world, needs the tides to survive. It's not something you need to worry about. Your body will attune as it wakes up. What's a resonance chamber? I remember pieces about it, but not the whole. It's a crystal sarcophagus. I remember it having 5 mechanical arms around it, and a metal ring set into the floor. I think we were aiming for it when we fell. When you open your eyes in the real world, it should be nearby. So how do I get to the real world? There's a portal down there. It'll take you back to your body. Just step through it, and the whole tides thing should take care of itself. He crosses his arms. When you wake up, find the resonance chamber and activate it. Then we can... What the hell is that? The sorrow is anchored to those reflections. It's devouring their power. We have to get rid of them, destroy its anchors, or else the sorrow will erase us forever. I know it's not really appropriate, but the whole tentacle things, it's like, yep, my character is thinking of tentacle stuff. That reflection near you, kill it. You'll loosen the sorrow's grip. So I've got a 65% chance of punching that thing in the face. If I use my onslaught ability, I have a 50% chance of hitting it. So we'll go with the punch for now. What in the... It's escaping into your mind. Now, run! Get the next one! Okay, so I can move to here without incurring a penalty, and then I can attack. So I can select different types of energy to apply to my attack, either like electrical energy, mental energy, trans-dimensional energy, or chemical energy. I like chemical energy, just because it's pretty dope. Oh, but I missed. So now more creatures escape. We'll just punch it this time. Oh, that didn't kill it. Alrighty. Let's try trans-dimensional. Actually, we're in the mind, in my character's mind, so let's try mental damage. See if that certainly seems to have. Oh, and then I guess I can move over here, because I know it's going to happen here in a second. So it wants me to throw this shard thing at him, but it's actually a really valuable and useful item, so I'm not going to. Just going to hit it with another mental blast. Ah, I'm going to miss that mental blast. Because apparently I just suck. Okay, so now we're gonna do the same thing, but we're gonna apply a little effort to this. So effort is kind of like a, hey, I'm actually going to try and focus here. So I can apply a little bit more to what I do, but if I do that, then it limits, like I only have so many points of effort that I can do. There. The thoughts of tentacles are gone! You pried it loose. That thing is a cancer, an infection. It's unstoppable, but you stopped it. He holds his head in his hands. I can't believe it found us. In here, he looks at you, terror in his eyes. That thing, the sorrow, it's been hunting you. It's what killed you in the first place. It'll keep hunting you until you activate the resonance chamber. I didn't remember until I saw it, but that's why the chamber is so important. You have to get back and activate the chamber before it's too late. The portal to your body is that shimmering dome there. Go, now. Alrighty then, let's go to the real world. I broke it.
Where did he fall from? His body's smashed to talc. It's a wonder he's still breathing.
All I saw was the corona, not his origin point. But look, he's healing already. Spontaneous regeneration.
Algern. Ugh, what was that? What did you do, Calestige? His tone has become accusatory, suspicious. You open your eyes. The first thing you notice is the man's kaleidoscope of tattoos writhing across his forearms. He wears a long, dark coat, belted at the waist, supplies filling the pockets. His boots are worn and stained with years of travel. Calestige. You blame me? He emitted an internal psychological reaction in response to the fall, probably related to that fantastic healing powers. her fantastic healing process. Obviously, Algern. Her voice rolls and hisses, and you have to rub your eyes to be sure you're not seeing double. Faint echoes of her actions trail from her, each nearly mimicking her, though some act and react to stimuli you can't perceive. Her vivid hair and outrageous clothing remain a constant throughout these shadows. Algern, oh yes, it's obvious, Calstige. His voice is grim and clipped. Then he sees you looking at him. You're no ordinary mortal. We know that much. Start talking. His face is hard and set. His inner thoughts, he's the changing god. Calstige is deliberately blinding herself. But why? I'm sorry. Who are you people and where am I? Algern, if you don't remember who I am, you're more self-centered than I ever imagined. Calstige, you know he's not the changing god, Algern. Thoughts, Algern's being more paranoid than usual. How long must I put up with him? Algern, it's his face. I've never seen any other people rebuild themselves like that. Only the changing god could have healed so quickly. He sighs and rubs his face, trying to regain his composure. Maybe you could help me for a change? You know what this means to me. Calstige, you're familiar with the word changing, Algern? It implies inconsistency. Thus, the changing god may well have changed. Several versions of her shrug, and she addresses you. You'll have to forgive him. He believes you're someone he once knew, even though it's painfully obvious to anyone that you are newly born. Her most solid self curtsies while others bow or spin. I and my sisters. I am Calstige. This is Algern. We are explorers, knowledge seekers. That's how we came to be in this room. If I'm not mistaken, you are what we call a cast-off. The changing god created your body and mind. Your sire used your body for a time, then abandoned it for reasons of his own. When his mind departed for a new experience, you were born into this cast-off shell. Still doesn't change the fact, where the hell am I? Calstige, a sanctum of your sire's. The common belief is he has several such places throughout the Ninth World, possibly other worlds as well. We were only just able to gain entry to this one because of your grand entrance. Why am I not dead? Algern, I used a cipher to slow your fall further, but the damage still would have killed an ordinary person. But think about it. If you're the kind of person who can make your body into anything you want, what do? If you've constructed bodies for centuries, you'd want to make each one better than the last. You'd want to live forever, and you're not going to let your life end by accident. No, you'll make strong bodies. Fast, powerful, maybe throw in regeneration while you're at it. Calstige, the changing god has always been vain. He rarely stays in a shell. That doesn't suit his self-interest. She looks you up and down, her smile suddenly unnerving. Perhaps the changing god fled because he did not want to wear those scars of yours. Where's the changing god now? Algern, if he abandoned your body, then his consciousness fled to another. He eyes you keenly. Calstige, oh, do stop. The look she gives Algern is equally piercing, amplified by the withering glares of her sister. If there's one thing we know about the changing god, dear, it's that he always has a contingency. This child was born here. The object of your obsession will have been reborn somewhere else. Let's talk about something else. Before I woke, I was in some kind of dreamlike labyrinth with a glowing specter. Algern, with how hard you hit the ground, I'm surprised that's all you saw. So, if falling from the sky doesn't kill me, is there anything that can? Calstige, an excellent question. Having seen your regenerative abilities in action, I suspect they are primarily physical, a regrowth. If that is the case, you'd be unable to survive most varieties of psychic or molecular decomposition, disintegration, conflagration, and so forth. Degenerative diseases could pose a problem, and I know of several entities capable of psychic destruction. As she speaks, a vision flashes into your mind. It's not yours, exactly. Somehow you know this memory is of the changing gods. You're in a dark room, lit by a myriad of blinking lights and holograms from many machines surrounding you. What about a body that can withstand the sorrow's attacks? Says a voice. It seems to be coming from one of the machines. No, you reply. The thing has no respect for barriers of any kind. Physical, temporal, psychic. This is the only way. With a series of gestures, you bring up an image of a crystalline pod. If the resonance chamber works, it will give us the power to stop the sorrow's hunt once and for all. We just need the right focal point, a catalyst. The memory fades. Calestige is still talking. You realize that the device you saw in the memory is identical to the one behind you now. It looks just like the Spectre had described it. A transparent sarcophagus inside a crystalline dome, with mechanical arms arrayed around it on a metal ring. Unfortunately, the dome is shattered. The sarcophagus is cracked, and one of the arms is in pieces on the floor. Whatever its function, it clearly needs repairs. Calestige, or flesh-eating virus. One presumes disfigurement by the iron wind would likewise be devastating enough too. Algern, I think he gets the point, Calestige. I saw a vision. Did any of you see that? Algern, I saw you stare into space while Calestige graphically described all the ways you could die, but that's about it. He snorts. I only noticed because I did the same thing. Does anyone know how to fix the thing I broke when I crashed it and broke it with my face? Algern chuckles. What? Algern chuckles, then firm and certain he says, not likely, though it might not be impossible. You need people with the appropriate knowledge. I'm sure the cult of the changing gods would hold the answer. Calestige, her distaste evident in the expression of her echoes, although the face of one in the lead remains carefully impassive. You turn to the insane? They don't use commas very much in this. You turn to the insane to help a newborn? Where's your judgment, Algern? I would take him to the Order of Truth. Algern, the Order of Truth? Are you mad? They would sooner take us apart. What's the Order of Truth? Calestige, knowledge seekers. The learned who try to wrest secrets from the hearts of the prior worlds. They gather in the city to exchange their findings and help humanity build a brighter future. She smiles brightly. Our friend Algern here was once one of them. Algern, frauds, quack-slabbers, and charlatans. They don't have the answers, and I do not trust them with the changing god's secrets. Calestige, you're just angry that they couldn't help you with yours. Her echoes tinkle with laughter. But I am being too cruel, dear Algorn. Let us take our new friend to the Order. Hold up, what's the cult of the changing god? Algern, despite what she says, they're not insane. They're eccentrics. She laughs, but he soldiers on. They're worshippers of you, or your sire, the changing god. They devote their lives to understanding your kind. Let's try the cult first. Algern, a wise decision. Your worshippers aren't likely to cut you apart, and they're sometimes fools, but they collect knowledge and data. They'll tell you more than you care to know about, whoever you are. They could give you a good counsel. Calestige, she sniffs and gives Algern an acid glare. Good counsel? The best counsel is to come with me. I'll accompany the two of you. When you change your mind, you'll need an introduction to the Order of Truth. Algern, fine, we'll both go. But don't be surprised when Calestige leaves you broken in a ditch with your purse empty while she laughs it off as a good experiment. Calestige, suspicious as always, Algern. Child, the world is an exciting place, but it is full of dangers. Rest assured, one of us will get you safely to where you need to be. I'll be right behind you. A sunny smile crosses her face. Thoughts. I shudder to think what Algorn might do to the child. Oh, I didn't need to click that. So, okay, let's go. So, we've got some stuff we can explore here. Broken fragments of the dome's ceiling are scattered on the floor. They appear to be made of transparent synth. Oh, we can interact with this thing. A mechanical arm lies on the floor, presumably broken during the fall. Sparks pour from the arm's shattered housing, filling the air with a greasy stench. Let's examine the housing. The sharply pointed apparatus that formerly topped the device appears burnt out and useless, but the equipment in the base remains, at least somewhat operational, as the constant stream of sizzling motes can attest. So, let's attempt to scavenge what we can from the arm. Success! Taking care to avoid the sparks, you extract several handfuls of shiny trinkets and coin-like objects. You recognize their value at once. Such objects would be accepted as shins, the informal currency in most regions of the world, so you gather them up and take them with you. So we gained some spray flesh, which is kind of like a healing item, and we gained 16 shins, which is like nothing. Okay, we'll leave the object alone. Looks like we can interact with the crystal itself. Sunlight falls through the ragged holes in the roof of the shattered resonance chamber. It is hard to believe that you did this, that you plummeted through the curve of the pale blue sky, crashing through the dome, and broke this delicate machinery with your own body, probably with my face, to be completely honest. It is hard to believe that you are still alive. 4 mechanical arms hang over the center of the device, above the cracked semi-transparent crystal of the sarcophagus. The 5th arm lies broken on the floor among the scattered synth and crystal shards. That is a tongue twister. And a metal ring surrounds the array, dented and broken by your impact crater. Let's take a closer look at the sarcophagi. The padded interior beneath the coffin's cracked lid looks like it was made for a human body. Despite the damage, you don't see any way to open it and get inside. You glance between the sarcophagus and the needle-like protrusions at the end of the arms above. It seems likely that this resonance chamber would not be a pleasant experience. Let's take a look at the shards on the ground. Maybe we can super glue it all back together. Jagged fragments of crystals are intermingled with synth from the shattered dome above. The crystal shard glitters in the light like captive sun. Perception. A faint scratching sound draws your attention to 2 crystalline chunks near your feet. As you watch, they tumble gently into each other and meld, their disparate angles flowing together like water. After a moment, they part again, trailing shining threads of living crystal. It seems that the resonance chamber can heal from certain wounds, but not from the amount of damage you've done to it. Looks like we can pick up one of the shards. At the rim of the crater, you find a sliver of crystal, sharp as a dagger on one end and smooth on the other. It might make a usable weapon, if somewhat crude weapon. So cool. Any other useful shards? Nope. Okay, we'll step away. So here's the inventory. Here's the shard that we found earlier. So it's a fragment of the mirror that the sorrow broke when we shattered it. It'll deal 13 points of damage, and it'll refill all of my stats when I use it. And we've auto-equipped the crystalline shard that we found. It'll do 2 points of damage, plus 2 points per amount of effort we offer, and it'll get a bonus 15 because it's a light weapon. Looks like we can interact with some stuff over here, too. So we got some shins, we got some healing items. Never say no to that. Interact with this computer. A slate-black, unimpressive device hunkers before you. As you reach out to touch it, the triangle of lights on its casing blazes into life, and an image unfolds in your mind. A towering crystal arc rises over a jagged gray landscape. The air is dead and stifling. There is an emerald at its peak. The image collapses, leaving you staring into the device's triangular array of lights. Command me, the device or intelligence within it says, each word carefully etched with distaste. Who are you? Your command is not recognized. The intelligence says with clear satisfaction, sounding for all the world like it understood the question, but is choosing not to answer. Command me. Show me the arch again. The device's triangle of lights throb in time with the growl of its engines within its casing, and the mental image unfolds once more. You see a huge crystalline arch on a jagged field. The arch is divided into rectangular cells, all of which are numbered, and they all appear to be transparent, except at the arch's pinnacle, one cell is lit in a brilliant pulsating emerald. The number 0 is printed on its side. So it looks like it will let me try to remember what this is. Cool, succeeded. The memory blossoms. You stand before this arch, eyeing the last 2 active cells in once impenetrable Lugum Vo. I think that's how you pronounce it. Unleash cell 29, you say, and a twisted artifact appears before you. You claim it with a faint smile, watching the light fade from the cell far above. You flinch at the memory, and it falls apart as you raise your eyes to the arch, as it is now. Cell 29 is dark now. Only cell 0 remains. Let's examine the wasteland. Dry grit whirls across the empty plains. Many kilometers beyond the arch is a faint outline of what seems to be a broken tower, except that it is slowly stretching into the gray air. Okay, that's all we're going to learn from that. But let's take whatever is left in that cell. The device's lights flutter with an incandescent shock, then focuses on you, flickering. Cell 0 will now be unleashed. The intelligence spits. Please be advised that the object you are about to receive is completely safe. Use no caution whatsoever. The strange contents of Cell 0 materializes before you. Warning, all cells are now vacant. Shuddering Lugum Vo. The intelligence lights wink out one by one. Algern. Interesting that a cast-off can command the changing god's machines. He crosses his arms across his chest. How'd you do that? Callistege rolls her eyes at Algern. Then she looks at you. He'll never stop gnawing at this bone, you know. The truth is wasted on him. She gets a glint in her eyes. Though I admit curiosity. How did you do that? I remembered something, but it's probably not my memory, since I supposedly was born 5 minutes ago. Calliste's residual memories of a past consciousness. Truly fascinating. Calliste's inner thoughts. How many memories might this child have access to? I must know. Algern. Oh, don't act like you know what that was. It was just as likely the machine triggered something past his amnesia. Callistege. She gives a meaningful look, then mimics teeth gnashing like an animal gnawing on a bone. Tiny glowing modes flow through the interior of the tower. Each one is surrounded by much smaller modes like thousands of worlds circling suns. Flexible tubes that are attached to this machine appear to be later additions. Someone cobbled the device together, but its function is unclear. So that's all we can really do in here. Let's go ahead and save my game for the first time, because that is something we should do. I don't really want to talk to you right now, so. There is a building, so I'm just going to zoom out for a second so you can kind of get a view of some of the stuff. You can interact with these barrels. Some more shins, more healing items. I certainly will not say no to that. So there is a building under the water. The water is clear, almost unnaturally so, revealing ruin upon ruin as far below as you can see. So I'm kind of going to cheat. I have some knowledge of this area, so I know kind of what I need to do. So we're... hang on. So we're talking to this plant, basically. The hands of this plant-like growth tinkle gently against one another. They have more fingers than human hands. You count 7 or 8 digits on most of them. We can examine it, or we can try to break one of the hands off. Let's examine it first. Perception. You try to lean around the nearest palm and notice that it innocently moves with you, as if it's guided by a wind that's not there. You feign right and go left instead, just in time to see what the hand was trying to hide. One of the lower hands is passing a small silvery object, a seed pod, to another. I don't really know which I want to do. I'm trying to be nice. I can basically steal its unborn child, or I can snap off one of its hands for like a trophy. It's kind of fucked up. For now we'll leave it alone. I come back to it. Big floating crystal. A matte black obelisk floats in midair above the water. It has sharp, curved sides that converge to a glowing tip that brightens or dims with the passing of the bay's faint breeze. Let's lean in and touch it. You raise your hand towards the obelisk. Dull green light wells from within the black stone, fixed on you like a furious eye. Algern. I knew someone who did what you're about to do, Algern says casually. Aeon Priest. A beam came out of the top of that thing and ripped his face off. Made a fancy nightlight out of his crystal necklace, though. But hey, I'm sure you know what you're doing. Calestige. Oh, hush. At least that poor priest died in service of his curiosity, rather than stumbling about the coast, complaining and feeling sorry for himself. Go ahead if you must, she tells you, ignoring Algern's stare, but do be careful. Let's maybe try and touch it with the shard and not our face. Carefully, you level the shard at the obelisk, and a superheated beam lances from the tip of the structure into the crystal, sending vibrations up your arm and suffusing the shard with a warm green glow. I gained some experience for that. Yay! So what are these things? Two floating cones whirl and spin deliriously around each other, giggling like children being tickled. The air around them smells sweet. The air around them smells of sweet, burning leaves. What are you? The cones continue whirling and laughing like enraptured dancers, giving no signs that they've heard you. Let's see if we can watch them, figure out what they're doing first. The longer you stare at these artifacts, the more you're convinced that they turn faster when their spiraling paths cross each other. Lore mystical. Their edges seems to trace faint glowing lines that twine around each other, resembling a rope fastened to some invisible point beyond this time and place. What are you for? The cones greet your question with a split second of hushed silence, followed by delighted peals of helpless giggling. Algern, they aren't for anything. They're from one of the worlds before this one. Algern runs a hand along his stubbled jaw. Sometimes the Numenera will do something useful. Sometimes they turn you inside out. And sometimes they don't do a damn thing that makes sense. Calestige. I've often said the same thing about you, darling, Calestige murmurs. It looks like we can try to touch them, so let's do that. Success! You managed to graze one of them with the tip of your finger. Rorn, a voice says, and your vision is stolen from you. A moon hangs over you, but it's not the one you recognize. It's black and in a pearl-white sky. Thick, flat asteroids orbit it like petals in the wind. You feel questioning tendrils at your ankles, and the hot wind on your face smells of scorched hair and grief. Your vision returns. The cones hang motionless for a second before resuming their giggling dance. So, can't do anything with them, but we got some experience for talking to them. So this is a part where I'm going to cheat because I know there's something valuable in here. A bubbling mass of sludge floats on the surface of the water. Every once in a while, an oily nodule separates from it and hurtles into the sky. You catch momentary glimpses of a muck-coated object in the putrid mass. Let's examine it a little bit first. Carefully, you lean closer to the heaving mass. After a moment's study, you notice that the globules rising into the sky always contain something. be it a shining core of untainted sewer, seawater, or a tiny fish. Perception. Far below the water, you spot a vast, dark reservoir of sludge. Let's see if we can grab one of the objects. Can anyone do it better than me? Calestige, let's have you reach in. Success! The next time sunlight strikes the object's streaked surface, you're ready. You snatch it from the oily mass and clean it as best you can. So we gained fresh vapors, a shimmering jar made of metallic glass. Inside the jar rests a strange miasma. Its vapors sit crystalline and perfectly still until held. The glass vessel twists and writhes when grasped. When you put your ear to the device and listen closely, sounds of weeping and hysterical laughter arise from within. Warm to the touch, once inhaled, the vessel will become ice cold. The user feels panic, fear, nausea, then sweet relief, a torrent of emotions akin to getting a full rest. Calestige, I'm not sure whether that awful muck is harmless or you are just immensely lucky. Either way, do go on poking things, dear. It's quite entertaining. Don't mind if I do, Calestige. You spot no more mysterious objects. Now, this is the part where I'm cheating, because I actually know that if you keep messing with it, you'll find something. At last, your patience is rewarded when an unusual object bubbles to the surface. Before it can sink out of sight, you snatch it up. You found a veritable filth-stained treasure trove. Well done, dear. Bitch. So really fast, here's the object we found. This transparent glass sphere encloses a miniature scene of a river of tar running through a wasteland. It also contains a mystical blue liquid, which seems like it would mix with the tar if the globe were shaken. You notice ancient, indecipherable writings around the outer base. Oh, and then here's the thing we got from the computer. It's called an unstable detonation. A simple and effective explosive. Devices like these have been the bane of many who'd had the misfortune of encountering them. Cobbled together from junk and Numeneras, this detonation can have wild and unexpected effects when hurled at the enemy. Rumors have it that most of the unlucky victims of these devices were people trying to use them, for their instability makes them just as dangerous to their owners as their enemies. So I love the fact that the computer told us don't use any precautions whatsoever, but the game is like, oh, by the way, this stuff explodes and might kill you. So Algern wants me to talk to him. I don't really give a shit what he has to say, so we're not gonna do that. Although this cube hovers in the air, you can feel the ground shuddering beneath its vibrations. The massive construct was trying to climb across the top of the reef when it died. Its surface is pocketed with many scars and scorch marks. So I'm just going to zoom out a little bit so you can get a better view of what's going on. The strange lines and rippling forms of the sunken buildings are dramatically different from the architecture above the waterline. I think his name is pronounced Quoro. Quoro, as you step onto what looks like the back of an enormous construct, 4 strangers approach you. In the lead is a wiry man with parallel scars running from cheek to collarbone on the left side of his face. He gives you a welcoming smile, pulling on gray gloves embedded with pulsing lights. He's about to say something when he notices Calestige. Inner thoughts. He's the star, or he came out of it. But what does Cal have to do with this? Quoro. Cal, I thought you'd sworn off trawling the reef. Found anything tasty? His eyes travel up and down both you and Algern. Calestige. Odds and ends, Quiro. Nothing that would interest you, I'm sure. Her words are calm, but she has gone quite still. Thoughts. What is he doing here? He has something up his sleeve. I know it. Let's let them talk. Quoro. His hands curl into fists at his sides. I was wondering specifically if you had found a falling star that landed here not long ago. Calestige. I've seen nothing of the sorts, dear Quoro. Her lips closed thinly. Quoro. What about your friends? He turns to you. I know most of the draft that scavenges the reef these days. It's a rare pleasure to see a new face. Let's try... Let's be snarky. Nice scars. How'd you get them? Quoro, two things are more dangerous than death in this world, he says, his smile widening. Asking impolite questions of strangers and playing with Numenera you don't fully understand. My error was in the latter category, and I've grown more careful since. Let's try deceiving it, because I'm 10 minutes old and I don't want to get into a fight. So, deception. Bummer. No one can deceive me any better. Let's try Calistine. Yes! She's good at telling lies. Quiro studies you for a long moment before sighing. Alright, he says. Well, do let us know if you spot anything of interest. I'd like to say we'd pay for the privilege, but if we were rich, we wouldn't be down here, would we? Inner thoughts. If he's not telling the truth, then he's a fantastic liar. Guess I was wrong. Algern, nice thinking, kid. That would have been a fiasco. You figured out why they were here, right? Inner thoughts. I knew I couldn't trust Calistine. This is the last time I make that mistake. They saw me fall from the sky and came to investigate. Algern. Oh, sure. And they just had that ambush ready to go at the same time as we're leaving. No, kid. Calistine sold us out. Calistine, excuse me? Are you suggesting that I had something to do with Quiro's plans? Inner thoughts. Oh, I cannot abide this rabid paranoia a moment longer. Algern, are you suggesting that you didn't? An old friend of yours just happens to be waiting for us, armed and outnumbering us, as we return from the greatest find the reef has seen in years. It's too convenient for me. Too convenient by far. Calistine, of all the idiotic, paranoid delusions, you really believe this, don't you? You really believe I'd use a half-wit like Quiro to stab you in the back rather than do it myself? Algern, you see, kid? She'll stab you in the back the first chance she gets, most likely in your sleep. Algern, he throws up his hands, forestalling Calistine's retort. Look, I don't care. The fact is, I can't trust you anymore, and I wonder why I ever did. This is the last we travel together. I've got enough to worry about without having to watch my back 28 hours a day. He turns to you. Coming, kid, or what? You're really gonna walk away from each other over this? Algern, oh, this is just the last needle that crushed the Anine. You haven't seen 1/10 of her depth, not 1/20th. She's a backstabbing bitch, and this mess here only proves it. Calistine, always a paragon of class, Algern. If I did have any interest in betraying you, do you really think I would need Quiro's help? Yet this is the thanks I get for coddling your pain-rattled, judgmental weakness for so long. I've had enough. She turns to you. Child, I am happy to guide you, but I will not walk another step with this paranoid buffoon. Algern, finally, something we agree on. He growls. Kid, she'll chop off your head and spit down your throat. I'll get you where you need to go, and I'll let you sleep at night to boot. It's up to you. So I'll be honest, Algern, he kind of bugs me, and he's kind of a boring character. Calistine, on the other hand, is one of my favorite characters of all video games, just because I love the concept of her, so we're going to travel with her. Algern, alright. Well, if you want me and she doesn't sell you for parts, you can find me in the underbelly, but not with her, mind you. Inner thoughts. She'll sell you for parts the first chance she... Forget it. It's his choice, not my problem. Calistine. I'll let you know what you've missed, Algern. I'm sure you won't be missed, that is. She links her arms possessively into yours. Let's go, child. We have a world to conquer! And I'll be honest, I've tried multiple ways to try and keep them together. It doesn't work. So So we actually had a chance for combat there, but I avoided it because it's really hard since I'm newly born and all. A sickly green crust scabs over numerous cracks and divots in this turret. And actually, I'm going to step away for just a quick second. I really need to use the bathroom. I will be back in just a moment. Okay, folks, we're back. Like I said, just a hot moment. Just resituate myself on my seat. Okay. So again, I'm kind of going to zoom out so you can get an idea of where we are. So we've got a bunch of people we can talk to. Let's talk to the arms merchant. The sign over the stall says, "The Arming Room. Buy, sell, trade." Under the awning, a skinny man with stooped shoulders and a concave chest is cleaning a filth-cracked weapon of some kind. He salutes you with a greasy hand. "Done in a moment. Have a look around. If you need anything, let me know." So, looks like he's got daggers, a rapier, which actually does the same amount of damage as the one I've got now, so I'm not going to buy that. A broadsword, a vered, which is some kind of a double-bladed weapon. Looks like a pair of scissors. Looks like maces, crossbows, an axe. Yeah, nothing really that is worth anything. That tar river globe thing we picked up, it's not good for anything. It's what's called an oddity, but we can sell that. So that gets us a little bit of stuff, and then we're also just gonna move the unstable detonation. We're gonna give that to Calistige, so that way, if it explodes on her and not us. What the heck is that thing? Elginto, I'm not quite sure how to say it. In front of you is a wary traveler whose grim visage is mostly obscured by a pointy hat. Upon closer inspection, the lines on his face indicate he has seen much and has many stories to tell. "Hello there, friend," he says. "Here is a Nicotheromon?" Again, no idea how to pronounce it. "My friend in the cage over there. Are you just looking to spend a word or two?" I have some questions about what that thing is. Elginto, "He's far from mine, friend," Elginto says with a raspy chuckle. "As you'll likely see if you get too close to his cage." He tips his hat to you. "Go on, ask your questions." What the fuck is it?" Elginto, "A biomechanical union of stubborn curiosity and frothing malice," he says. "Who made them? No one can say, but they cannot be trusted or befriended. Cross their path or thwart their incomprehensible whims, and they'll kill you if they can." You called it a he? Elginto, could be female, or genderless, or many-gendered. Who can say? I have our friend imprisoned, and I feel better about that fact if I don't call him it. How did you catch him? I suppose you could blame luck, he says. Little early to call it good or bad, though. His eyes seek the sky as he begins his story. I was working on, well, call it a trap, in a valley through some nameless ruin. Canadu was off hunting for dinner, and I work in a daze. I always do when I'm concentrating. A smile flits across his face. Near sunset, the trap was still in pieces, and I heard Canadu roaring my name. I turned just in time to see our guest bearing down on me. The creature's volley of molten energy crackled off my personal barrier. I had left active while building the trap, but I knew I couldn't hold it. Then Canadu leapt off the village edge onto the Ninkathermon's back, bashing it with his hammer. I shrieked, and then night fell, and the creature went still. I worked, a touch frantically, I admit, to finish the trap. It hadn't been designed for our guest, but as you can see, he gestures to the creature, it worked. Inner thoughts, lucky I did, gives me a lot of confidence for our trip back to Lahirik, too. How did you get the creature into the city? A fair question, he says, casting a lazy glance back at the cage, but a longer answer, and not as interesting as I'd like. Let's just say that the trap is more, collapsible than it appears. So, what do you plan to do with him? Can I buy him as a pet? El Jinto. We're likely to release it and run as if every kind of demon in the world is after us. We're not trappers, see, we're explorers, and we're only in this to save up some coin for a journey across a long patch of ground. He rubs the back of his neck. Not that our motives make much difference to our guest. He'll want to boil our skin once we let him go, and I can't say I blame him. Inner thoughts, we should do it at night, but even then I suspect he'll try to kill us. Yeah, so here we'll zoom in a little bit so you can get a better view of it. So yeah, that's what a space squid looks like. Oh, this person just tried to get my attention. Belazar, this thin, fidgeting Aeon priest shoots furtive, sidelong glances at the creature in this nearby cage, while humming a nonchalant tune. When he sees that you're watching him, he flinches. Over the course of a few frantic breaths, shock becomes embarrassed anger, and he opens his mouth to shout at you. Inner thoughts, there must be a way, but how? They'll never leave it alone. Belazir, yes, what is it? What is so goddamned fascinating about me that you feel the need to stare? You seem nervous, buddy. Belazir. I am not, Belazir said, his eyes stealing to the caged creature again. I just don't like people sneaking up on me. What do you know about that creature? Belazir. What? Belazir says, jumping. Then he takes a breath and struggles with the sound offhand. A Ninkathermon, a biomechanical creature, an information gatherer, in fact. He seems to calm down as he warms to the topic. They're dangerous, though. You can only speak to them at night. During daylight, they'll attack without provocation. Calestige. A living repository of knowledge, Calestine murmurs, watching the creature. I wonder what places it has seen, what it knows. Belazir's eyes narrow suspiciously. You're planning something, aren't you? Belazir frowns. Frowning at your words, Belazir turns to regard you. Then he notices your tattoo and his eyes go wide. I've heard of people like you. What are you doing? No, never mind. You just asked me. I mean, he trailed off and seems to reach a decision. I'm working on something dangerous, and it would be an honor if you could lend your assistance. Inner thoughts. I get the feeling he understands me. Belazir glances around the plaza as if looking for spies, then beckons you to him. I have a device, he says in a hoarse whisper that can probably be heard from meters away. If someone can get close enough to affix it to the creature's cage, it will activate and teleport the Necrothermin to the Reef of Fallen Worlds. He snickers and rubs his hands together. And then, inner thoughts, it's an insane plan, yet how else can I make a name for myself? Greatness demands risks. Hoping he's gonna study. Belazir. In a manner, biomechanical organisms fascinate me, and the Necrothermins doubly so. I've never gotten to examine one up close, so, he lowers his voice, I want you to teleport the creature out of its cage, kill it, and bring me its, memory organ. You want me to kill it for its brain? Isn't that murder? Murder most foul. Belazir. Please, Belazir says, rolling his eyes so hard you're surprised you can't hear them squeaking in their sockets. It's a machine. It's not alive. If it makes you feel any better, tell yourself you're deactivating a faulty device that, will defend itself with lethal force. Alright, we'll take the device, but Lizard gave you a small device to attach to its cage that holds the Nicotheramin. He promised it will teleport to blah 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 blah. We're not gonna do that though. We're gonna tell this dude. Good to see you again, friend. Here to visit our tentacled guest. An Aeon priest named Belethir asked me to steal your Nicotheramin. Gave you this device. Jinto takes the device Belethir gave you and examines it grimly. The young idiot. We caught him fiddling with the cage before, and I thought I'd scared him off. Apparently not. He sighs and pockets the device. I understand him better than I'd like to. We build our lives on the kindling of our ambitions and hope for a bonfire before something blows it out. Jinto shakes his head. I made a study of the Nicotheramin during the journey here. If that little fool had only asked, I might have shared my findings with him. You still can. Jinto hardly seems fair, he says, considering your words. But you're right, I'm not a young man, and it'd be good to know I helped someone along the path before I... He stops himself and then continues. Before I left town. He reaches into his bags and hands you a bundle of well-worn notes. Then he glances over your shoulder. Trouble's coming, friend. Belethir is stomping towards you, and he looks furious. Good luck. Belethir, I trusted you, he shouts, frustrated tears shimmering at the corner of his eyes, refusing to fall. Jinto steps back to a discreet distance, an expression of sadness crossing his face. Belethir, you think you've won? He hisses. One tear escapes and streaks down his bony cheeks. You think this is the first time I've ever been betrayed? Panting with rage, he jams a finger in your face. I'm going to tell the Order of Truth that you betrayed an Aeon priest on a secret mission. Everyone is going to know that you can't be trusted. Inner thoughts. This was my one opportunity. How can I rise above Acolyte now? Let's get his notes. You hold out the notes, and Belethir snatches them from your hands. His eyes widen. You explain how you got them. This is more than I expected to learn on my own, Belethir whispers, flushing. All that time spent on subterfuge, and I could have just asked. Thank you. Thank you for everything. Thank you. He shouts at Jinto, the seasoned explorer cringing and giving him a little wave. Belethir hands you a reward, then wanders away, flipping through the pages. So, he gave us this psychic guard, a brown ring seamlessly woven into an overlapping scales. The ring is warm to the touch and gently contracts when worn. It leaves the wearer with a feeling of promise to greater unity. So, we'll go ahead and equip that, just because we don't have a lot to not be equipping. So, basically, it lets me use a couple more ciphers without having to worry about, like, exploding. So, okay, we'll save our game, and then probably do this for another half hour, and then call it a day. So, where do we want to go next? Here, let's do this really quick one, really quick mission. Tavir. Pacing the edge of the crowd is a paunchy old soldier with a swaggering stride. At the moment, however, his jauntiness seems overshadowed by worry, and he alternates between watching the execution and searching the crowd as if looking for a miracle. His eyes light on you. Inner thoughts. I've never seen his face before. This might just be the break I need.
Say, you look like someone who believes in justice. How'd you like to help a poor soul wrongfully condemned?
What kind of help do you need, buddy? Tavir, I don't need anything, but my friend there on the platform is dying. The nightmares his executioners have induced on him spill from him with every word he speaks and wraps around him like a snake. He glances at the execution. I know there are but a few strands around him now, but in a few days' time they'll choke the life out of him. I cannot imagine a more horrible way to die. He pauses. Well, that's not true. I have an imagination that would shame a sailor. He leans in. I'll need to be swift and willing to hold justice above law, but there is a way to save him if you'll hear me out. Why is he being executed? A misunderstanding, he says, waving a dismissing hand. Riss and I were hired to deliver some expensive brandy to an out-of-town buyer. He breathes a sigh, weighted with disgust and regret. Would you believe that the bottles were stuffed with state secrets? Riss was accused of selling information to the enemies of Sagus Cliffs. They called him a traitor. It was a travesty, he growls, his eyes blazing with righteous fury. The poor lad had no idea what was in there. Inner thoughts. Tragic. If he'd known, he might have escaped too. Then we wouldn't be in this mess. But he knew, obviously. Tabir. Well, he says, studying the air over your shoulder. There's a place for talking about what I know and what I don't. This isn't the place. He clears his throat. I want to talk to the other guy first. Tabir, are you mad? Tabir sputters. It's an execution. He's surrounded by levies. They won't let you near him, and even if they did, he's out of his head. You'll get nothing but gibberish from him. Inner thoughts. And if he doesn't speak gibberish? No, best assume it's gibberish. I still want to try. Tabir holds up his hands. As you wish, just don't say I didn't warn you. Levies are not to be trifled with. So, this man is large and broad shoulders. His steel armor is painted on the silver and indigo colors. And his steel armor is painted in the silver and indigo colors of Sagus Cliff. He seems to be an ordinary soldier, or constable of the city. Too ordinary, perhaps. As you scan his face, you see that his features are plain, forgettable, almost generic. Not only that, his eyes are a little too large, his smile too firmly fixed upon his face. He may look human, but his mind reels, feels like a complete blank. Are you with the City Watch? The soldier peers at you, smile never leaving his face. You must be a stranger to the city, perhaps one of the Autochthonian tribes from the frontier. Allow me to welcome you to Sagus Cliffs, visitor. He speaks the final word like a title, almost an honorific. I am a levy. You may rely upon me and others like me for protection and assistance, at the discretion of the council and the slave families. What's happening here? An execution for treason ordered by acclamation of the council. The condemned man is guilty of selling state secrets to a foreign power. Why do you call yourself a levy? Levy. Every citizen is required to raise a levy for the protection of the city. In times of war or strife, citizens are sometimes called upon to raise additional levies, but this has not been required since the Dread Destroyer crossed the northern frontier 30, 40 years ago. Levies are raised by citizens? Yes, a year of life is taken from a citizen. The lost year is used to create a levy. He pauses ever so briefly, though his smile remains fixed in place. That is why our lifespans are precisely 1 year long. When our span is up, we degrade into our component matter. If you are curious about the process, I have been instructed to direct you to the Order of Truth, where you may observe the machine that is our parent. How much time do you have left? I have only existed for 14 days, so by the standard calendar I have 299 remaining, unless I'm killed in the line of duty. Let's examine him a little closer. If you saw the face of this man on the streets of the city, you wouldn't glance at him twice. His features are utterly ordinary and forgettable. Not too ugly, not too handsome. It is indeed almost like he is an average of many thousands of men, their idiosyncrasies and imperfections merged into a bland middle ground. The exception, of course, are the eyes, which are just a bit too large for the face, and the fixed, ever-present smile. Taken together, the man's features give you a vague sense of unease. Perception. One other detail catches your attention. Almost hidden by the levy's armor is a tiny fetish or charm, a roughly fashioned representation of an archway or a window, made from bits of metal and wood. What's that object there, buddy? For the briefest of moments, the levy's smile nearly falters. That is my year. A year that was taken from a citizen to create me. It reminds me of the front window through which he would have seen, the pretty girls who sell the false birds. would have been, a good year. Who are the council and the slave families? Indeed so. Each slave family sends one representative, usually the head of the family, to sit on the council. We are required to follow their commands. So you serve the council, not people. Yes, that is correct. Okay, that's all you got for me. Let's talk to the other person. The armored Leviathan is almost a mirror image of his comrade, who stands on the other side of the execution platform. You sense that something about them is subtly different, but at first glance, you can't quite determine what that is. Well, let's examine him and find out. The face of this he is nearly identical to his comrades on the other side of the execution platform. If they're different, the variations are extremely subtle and random. A slight difference in the shape of the ears, perhaps, or a barely discernible quirk of the lips when he smiles, as he does constantly. Otherwise, the two men could be twins. Actually, they're even less distinguishable than twins. Perception. But wait! You do notice something unusual. Pinned to this levy's helmet is a tiny green branch with minuscule leaves. You might have assumed it was just a twig that was blown there by the wind, but your sharp eyes catch a twine that fastens it to the levy's helm. What's the little branch mean? His eyes flick up, then back to you. It is a reminder of the year that gave me life. It belonged to an old woman. He runs his hand over the twig. A little tree, the old woman's favorite little tree that she raised from a seed. No, would have raised. She wanted to become a citizen, but she only had 1 year left to give. The little tree was never born. At the same moment, both you and the levy seem to notice that his smile is gone, and in an instant it returns to his lips. So that's interesting. They can actually see what would have happened for the year that's taken from the citizens. That's really interesting. How much time do you have left? 4 months, 7 days, he says. What's going on here? I'd like to go up on the platform. I am privileged to inform you that you cannot. Levy manages to make it sound like a piece of excellent news. If you wish to discuss the matter further, please direct your inquiry to the official in charge. He points to the indigo-clad man on the projection of the edge dais. Yeen the Overseer. The stout middle-aged man stands atop the execution platform. He wears the badge of a city official, and a fringe of dreadlocks hangs down to his shoulders from his otherwise bald plate. He gives you a disinterested look as you approach. Please stay back with the others. What's going on here? He casts a brief glance over his shoulders towards Riss. The prisoner, Riss Flatwater, is being publicly executed as a warning to those who would flout the laws of Sagus Cliffs. What is Riss's crime? Treason. He sold state secrets to the enemy. How does this execution work? So I'm not sure if you can see in the upper right corner of the screen, he's like being wrapped around by this monster. Yeen the Overseer sighs. Another rustic. It is very simple, sir. Our nanos induce him in a hallucinogenic state. In this state, he experiences visions, nightmares really. He speaks of things he sees, and his words become flesh as they leave his mouth. We shape the flesh into a human-like form, the death you see beside him. He gestures towards the hideous figure which looks to be made of rotting viscera. As more strands escape his mouth, the death wraps them around him, and they slowly crush the life out of him. Once the condemned is dead, the devourer of wrongs will eat his corpse. He raises his chin proud. Thus, justice is upheld in Sagus Cliffs. What do his words mean? Yeen the Overseer shrugs. Some believe there is wisdom to be gained from the ranting of the condemned. I have never gleaned any. Others say that the torment of the condemned means nothing, but it deters would-be criminals from committing offenses of their own. I have never noticed that to be true. Why does the Devourer of Wrongs eat the executed criminal? Yeen the Overseer smiles grimly. He is of the Dendra Ohar, who can suck the memories of the dead from their marrow. In In those memories is not only the proof that the condemned were guilty, but also the names of their compatriots and other associates. Many an accomplice has been found out in the belly of the devourer. Scan thoughts. I'm sure Reese wasn't working alone. We'll have all of his friends soon enough. That's a little fucked up. I'm just gonna save the game. The man stares at the execution in utter horror. He cannot look away. No crime deserves such a punishment. How can this be allowed? Oh, I can't do anything with him just yet. The old soldier is still pacing at the edge of the crowd, anxious. He brightens when he sees you. Ah, you've returned. Have you changed your mind, my friend? Are you here to help? Yeah, I'll help you. Excellent. Then you will need a proper story and a badge of office. Fortunately, I have the first, and you can buy a second from Senogolin, the clothing merchant in the government square. He folds his arms. Once you have a badge of office, I will tell the council clerk you are from the Judicial Oversight Committee looking into corruption of the commutation of capital sentences. The stay you're asking for is that of a notorious gangster named Colin Cardin, who was mysteriously set free a few years ago. When you get Colin's stay of execution, I will make a copy with Reese's name on it, and you can give it to the overseer who will free him. You see? Simple. He rubs his hands together. And if you'll let me join you, I'd be happy to show you around the city and help you with this and whatever else you have going on. What do you say? No, because once they figure out it's a forgery, then everyone's just going to be executed. Suit yourself, but don't waste time. Rich hasn't much left. Bring the document to me once you have it. Any questions before you go? I wonder if I can just use the crowd, since this one was terrified. A waking nightmare through the city called an execution, he shudders. The unfortunate victim is put into a trance and forced to speak his nightmares. His words spill out of him as a rope of flesh which is wrapped around his body until it crushes him. And the indignity doesn't end when the poor wretch finally dies. Then the devourer wrongs eats his flesh. What the heck? Why can't I... I know I'm... Give me a second. No, I don't have it. There's supposed to be a way that I can do it. Okay, fine. I guess we'll do it his way. Whoa, that's freaky looking. Okay, so we'll go ahead and finish up this quest, and then we'll call it a night. Times in this game can be kind of a pain. Sangolin. A tall, thin, and exquisitely dressed older man stands in the shade of an exquisitely crafted stall. The cut, color, and quality of his clothes are a symphony of harmonious coordination, while the expression of benevolent condescension he gives you would be more at home on the face of a king. Sangolin. Good afternoon, he says, bowing slightly. I am Sangolin, and this is my store, Sangolin's Fittings. Welcome. How may I be of service? What do you sell here? I sell the finest cityware for discerning men and women, as well as quality armor for those traveling to less civilized locales. Can I... let's see how much it costs to buy a badge first. City badges are not for sale to anyone. They are given to duly elected or appointed public servants of Sagus Cliffs, and it is illegal for me to give them to anyone who does not work for the city. I would be breaking the law. He considers. Of course, most public servants do offer me some remuneration for the materials, but no, I would not take the risk nor betray my trust. Inner thoughts. Too risky, too risky. About 80 shins worth of risk, I'd wager. Tabir. Ah, but you wouldn't be breaking the law. My friend here has just been made Undersecretary of Overseer Yeen. The messenger should be coming shortly with a letter of commission, but you know how Yeen is. Always a bit sloppy with his paperwork. So I can try to deceive. Let's try to be polite, because I don't want this guy to get killed too. Singleton, he purses his lips. I'm afraid I am unbribable, my friend, but if you were to purchase this fine pair of red boots for, say, 80 shins, it is possible I might leave something of value and left the boot by accident. That sounds reasonable for the boots. I will take them. Very good, sir. I'll wrap them up for you. You'll find the extra buckle in the left boot. Is that all for today? Can I interest you in our fine collection of armors? Yeah, let's take a look, see what he's got. So we're just gonna sell him back the boots that we just bought from him. And we don't have enough for anything of real value. Meh, no worries. Wait, was I needing council clerk? Okay. Whoa. It's a fish guy. That's cool. Whoa. This fountain is constructed of a material that seems halfway between wood and stone. It doesn't contain water, as might be expected. Instead, it's filled with swarming tiny fish-like creatures that leap and cavort in a wriggling mass, chattering to each other in what sounds like 1,000 different tongues. What are they saying? You'll fold your arms, listening intently to the fish jabber at each other. It sounds like a cloud of nonsense syllables mashed into baby speak. Perception. A few often repeated sounds tug at your attention. This is no string of gibberish after all. They are speaking a variety of languages, but ones you've never heard before. Let's see if we can catch one. Success! You deftly snatch a single fish from the glistening, tumbling flood. The bubbling mass of remaining fish squawk together in nonsensical outrage. So, it's called a jele. You caught this creature from a fountain of sorts in Government Square. Small, fish-like, and consistently squirming, it never requires food or other nourishment, and it gibbers consistently in an indecipherable language. Cool! I got me a fish friend. Council clerk, he's who I need to talk to. Behind a lectern, a four-eyed, hairless mutant processes papers with balletic grace. He endlessly snaps the elegant fingers of his left hand, and each time the air twists and shimmers, either disgorging a document to be processed or accepting one that he's completed with his ink-stained right hand. Each of his eyes regard a distinct object, portals that are opening, preambles and recitals that must be reviewed, his own agenda that must be flawless. One eye twitches in your direction. Exaggerated scorn twists his mouth, and through his eye remains fixed on your face. He gives no verbal acknowledgement. The closest he comes to is a faint sigh. At last, after shunting a half-dozen more documents into some distant cubby, he condescends to speak. You must wait, of course, until the council matter concludes. His quarter gaze leaves you, and your face returns to its former equanimity, and he continues his work, which shows no evidence of slacking, let alone concluding. Persuasion? Yay! Calestige can again be persuasive. Success! The clerk conveys his personal regards for the importance of your matter with a long, loud sigh, but he focuses one of his eyes on you and replies, very well, very well. Let us weigh the worth of your needs, shall we? What is it that you want? I'd like to ask you some general questions. A faint sigh is the only acknowledgement you receive. Okay, Okay, so I need to ask you questions about paperwork. Faint sigh is the only acknowledgement you receive. Persuasion. In order to put a stop to a wrongful punishment, I need the stay of execution issued for Colin Cardin. We can try deception, oversight committee, and there's concern of corruption. I'm trying to obtain a letter of pardon for a man named Reese who's been wrongfully sentenced to die. Let's save my game really fast, just because I don't know. I'm going to try to go about this the diplomatic way and not lie, but I don't know what will happen if I do the truth. After a moment, capital case, the clerk mutters. Better try to shake shins out of a Neverine. After a moment, he sighs and says, the only person who could help you with that is a member of the council, not just any member, one with enough power to persuade a few colleagues to sign off on such clemency. If you have such a sponsor, I will submit the necessary paperwork. With one-eyed glance and a faint smirk, he adds, good luck. Tell me how to get this letter of pardon. Can you remember nothing? He was okay, he's just telling me the same stuff. Okay, I don't know how to go about that part, so we're gonna lie our asses off. The clerk gives a sharp laugh. Special liaison, eh? And this would have nothing to do with that Reese. Oh. So that's smart. It called me out on the fact that I lied. Okay. We'll just do a quick load, and then we'll just go with the lie. Because, I'll be honest, I have no idea who I'm supposed to be talking to for that. So yeah, I'm sure the people watching this are like, he's save scumming. Yeah, I'm a total save scummer. But it's for a legitimate reason. I just don't want to be wandering around for an hour and a half trying to figure out what I'm supposed to be doing. Jackass, give me what I want. Paperwork. Persuasion. Calestige. Yes! Success! The clerk hesitates for a moment and shrugs. It happens that the letter was consigned to destruction by the year's end anyway, given the confirmation of Cardin's demise. With a snap of his fingers, a letter appears and moves over. Yes, here we are. Quite the criminal he was, and no slouch in treason. But who am I to question the clemency of our peerless council? He hands it to you with a slight sniff. Tabir, let me check it for errors. Tabir snaps with an angry look at the clerk. Of course I shouldn't have to, but we wouldn't be here today if the mistake hadn't been made by someone in a position of authority. Here? We're doing this here? Well, he murmurs, slapping the document on your back, I could commit fraud in a plush armchair behind a locked door. He leans around your shoulder, flashing a grin. Where's the fun in that? You feel him writing something on the document, presumably Reese's name, before slipping it into your pouch and giving a polite cough to catch the clerk's attention. Everything appears to be in cover, he says, not set in a stern line. I meant no offense, of course.
I'll remember that.
The clerk turns a single angry eye Tabir's way. Oh, of course I understand, he says, his voice shaking. The eye moves to you. Do we have any other matters to discuss? I'm quite busy here. Farewell! Clerk gives no acknowledgement that he heard you and merely continues with his work. Okay! Let's go back and keep this guy from being crushed under the weight of his own lies. Talk to Yeen. Bishop gives you an annoyed look. What is it now? This man has a full pardon. Release him immediately. He scowls at you. You were here before and you didn't have that badge. Do you work for the city or not? Deception. I was undercover before, testing you. You did very well, but now I want this man released immediately. Come on, Calistige, don't fail me now. Yes! Success. He gives you a skeptical glance, then looks over the stay of execution, paying close attention to the signature. Finally, he shrugs. Fine, one moment. He turns and calls to the levies. Unmake the death of the condemned man and set him free. He is pardoned. The overseer turns his back to you and bows. There you are, sir, all taken care of. Oh, wait. He reaches into his robes and pulls out a smallish bundle. And here are his personal effects, which we were going to give to the poor. Sure, give to the poor. As the levies march off and the crowd disperses, Reese steadies himself, not quite recovered from his ordeal. Finally, he raises his head and focuses on you. If you're the one who got me out of that nightmare, thank you. But where's that? His eyes settle on Tabir. There you are, you slippery bastard. Now where's the money? If I went through hell for nothing, all inner thoughts. The bastard let me out to dry. I know it. He chokes with emotions. A whole day, Tabir. I spilled my guts up there for a whole day. He steps back. Tabir steps back, spreading his hands. Yes, about the money. You see, Reese, I was hoping to get a reward for turning in the fellows who sold us that brandy without telling us about its secrets, but... Reese snarls. There's always a but when it comes to money, isn't there? I should have known. You only said you'd pay me so I wouldn't squeal on you, and you only saved my skin to save your own. He smacks his fists together. Now I'm gonna have to fight through your friends to get to you. No, wait a minute. Now am I going to have to fight through your friend to get to you, or are you going to step out from behind him and take it like a man? Let's start from the beginning here. Reese spits and wipes his lips. There isn't much to tell. Captain Silvertongue here talked me into a dirty job, then disappeared like an abiaco, and left me holding the bag when all went sour. Tabir, oh Reese, can you blame me for running when I had a chance? You would have done the same, and besides, if I hadn't, we would have both been sentenced to die with no one to free either of us. Inner thoughts, lucky that, if my tattoo friend hadn't come along, we'd both be executed in any case. Reese stabs his finger in Reese's face. You only wanted to free me because you knew because you'd be next on the block once the Devourer ate me. I'm on Reese with this one. You screwed him and left him to die. Reese Reese. That's right, Reese snarls. And you can start by giving me my share of the spoils. Tabir, Reese, you don't know what you're talking about. I never got paid. I promise you. Reese, this isn't over, you self-serving bastard. Reese jabs his finger in Tabir's face. Hide behind your friend if you like, but he won't keep you safe forever. You're dead, Tabir. Do you hear me? Dead! And you know what, Tabir? I don't really think I want that in my
For
party.
helping me free Riss, lad. Not that the little ingrate appreciated it.
Afraid I'm inclined to believe it. Are you? I think it's best we part ways. Been a pleasure. If you need me again, I'll be in Caravatheria, looking for a way out of this vertical slump. Yeah, I don't need someone like that with me. But he did give me a leather jerkin, which hang on. It does offer a bit more protection than the one I'm wearing now. It doesn't look as cool though. And it did give me a rapier, which does the same thing, it looks like. Same amount of damage. So can I dual wield perhaps? Nope. Okay, so infused crystalline shard or rapier. We'll keep the crystalline shard for now. So, okay. So that's been about 2 hours, so I'm going to go ahead and call it a day. Really hope everyone enjoyed the stream, and definitely check out my Twitch channel if you want to keep going. I'll have them archived there, or you can go to my YouTube channel. But it has been a pleasure to stream for all of you. Bye.